Do you remember the first time that you, I guess, saw a porn magazine or a movie or a video or?
Yeah, I want to say I was, geez, let's see, couldn't pick an age. Young man, young boy, maybe found the bottom drawer of my father's dresser, stumbled upon some Playboy magazines magazines of that nature. Maybe a funny deck of cards with sexual positions or something, And maybe some of the neighborhood boys would collect and say, oh, my father has this VHS or something, tape. We all make a plan. Tomorrow after school, we're going to come watch it. It would be all fuzzy, not the best quality, obviously. And we would watch it, and that would be pretty much, that would be it. Oh my God, look, naked girls and stuff. I don't know, it's funny. I don't feel like I felt a charge or a spark, I was just like, oh my God, maybe it was the taboo portion of the fact that, we're not supposed to see this, or we are, but it's just an issue of when. I think it was, I want to say, we saw it and it was cool, and then, we were just back to what we were doing as kids, throwing a baseball and doing some stuff. And it wasn't like, wow, oh my God, let's do it again, and, whatever. So, I guess I want to say that's my recollection of it.
How old were you?
A teenager, maybe, younger than that. Can't recall. I mean, as we grow older, we tend to have a less clear, vision of our adolescence and such. I grew up, I'm actually Chinese and Italian. My father was pretty much 100% Italian guy, and my mom was half Chinese, half Asian, and the rest American. So my dad was like 6'2", she was about 4'11", small, and I guess in the 60s, I don't know how that was received, because it was in some respect interracial, in some respect, correct, right? White and Asian, maybe. But other than that, great upbringing. My dad was a blue collar guy most of his growing up. He played in a band. My mom, my brother, and myself. So it was just the four of us. My brother's older, 3 years older. So we had a great childhood. We did a lot of fun stuff, outdoor stuff, and Mom took care of us. And I don't recall. We lived in a blue-collar town. I remember Maple Shade. I remember specifically New Jersey, and received a lot of I guess, I'm not quite sure what you would call it, but from being Chinese. When I was a young boy, I looked Chinese. I really looked it. So coming home from school, I would encounter the bullies, chink, and being chased home, And I remember having to run into the front door, shut the door, and look out the window, and whew, I'm safe, I'm safe. So, yeah. But other than that,
So you felt different, obviously, growing up because of your parents' nationalities,
right?
And you felt safe at home.
Of course.
In that environment.
Provided a very safe home.
How did you perceive the relationship between your mom and your dad, as far as, other than in a manner of being parents and raising you and doing that? How do they interact with each other as a couple?
Good. I don't recall any, I don't want to say drama or anything. It was always a good environment. Yeah.
Were there ever open displays of affection between each other when they thought maybe you weren't looking or you wouldn't notice? Do you remember that? Hugging, kissing?
Yeah, there was that. There was the public affection, and that was no problem. But I don't recall, the door's closed. I wonder what's going on in there. Yeah. My brother and I, I don't know. I don't recall that. I don't know. Like I said, it's very unclear still at this point.
But nothing was
Nothing like somebody was a drinker and somebody was smashing windows and none of that. It was a decent childhood memory.
So you grew up.
My dad coached us in soccer and foot and baseball and stuff like that. My mom would always, be very comforting and nurturing. So it's all good memories.
And growing up in a blue-collar community, obviously religion is important in that community. Were your parents religious?
Yeah, we were, my father, I guess it was Catholic, raised Catholic, so communion and the whole Sunday school and all that.
Devout Catholic?
Yeah.
Your parents did?
Devout Catholic, yeah. And then I felt like as I grew up, maybe a portion of the way I felt about religion kind of was like, I believe in it, but I'm busy doing other things. I want to become a kid and do some, rather than go to Sunday school and go to church and such. So very spiritual. I want to say I recall an awkward feeling that I experienced as a young man in a social setting with girls and such, Not that I think I was more just, not comfortable in my own skin yet. Like I was just like, And I saw my friends, and I saw them picking up girls and just being themselves and stuff, and I always was like, I don't know what to say. Whatever, I feel like I would recall sitting at the lunch table, after a weekend, come back Monday, lunchtime, and all the stories would go around the lunchroom, the kids, oh man, I bagged Susie this weekend, and, and it would go around and kind of get to me, and I feel like, for lack of better words, I kind of just, either got up to go get some more milk, just so it would avoid me having to say what I did, because I didn't bag Susie or,
Right.
I went and rode my bicycle and went fishing and did all that kind of thing. So I guess, and that, I don't know how that, I reacted to that. May have felt a little like, man, I wish I was, had these stories to tell, so to speak, You
kind of you learned as you went.
Yeah, plus I feel like I was a late bloomer, high school, smallest kid in this class, literally could fit in a locker as a senior. Smallest from a developmental stage, I recall at one point, being in soccer and stuff, and sitting, doing stretches and stuff, and looking over and just being with a bunch of guys, we're looking over and there's fucking Jimmy with this big bush hanging out of his shorts, and I'm like, whoa, and I'm like, I don't have that. And I was like, that's strange, when am I going to have hair on myself? So a bit of myself was kind of like, the last thing I wanted to do is end up in that situation with a girl,
right.
being without pubic hair, for lack of better words. So,
and the irony is you've made it a point to have nobody here in your adult life.
Well, I just don't have any. It's funny, strange.
Oh, really?
I was Chinese and Italian.
That's
so Chinese, the Italian men, hairy.
Very hairy.
Chinese guys, none. Boom.
No.
So I got the Italian.
You look Italian and you don't have the body hair.
Yeah. Fortunately, I'm Chinese from the waist up. It's a joke. Ongoing joke. I had learned pretty early in my life that chicks dug muscular guys, the guys that worked out. Plus, that was the nature, that was what was personified in like society, a tough Clint Eastwood, Charles Bronson kind of guy, right? That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to fashion myself after one of those, Rocky, Sylvester Stallone, so to speak, So I learned early on that, working out was fun, being physical. That was the cool part, test your strength. And being a young man trying to find himself within his own clique of his neighborhood friends anyway. It's like, you're trying to find your place. So, if you were a stronger kid or a more popular kid or a more,
your place in the clan.
Yeah, so to speak. Yeah, so to speak. So I found early on that, I could get more noticed by virtue of being a little more masculine, working out, sports and such. Still trying to inevitably cultivate myself to not be so shy, if you will, because I still led a pretty shy type of life. I was blessed into having some you're a good-looking kid. I had a lot of my family members. Oh my God, look how cute, handsome, whatever. Grandmoms, aunts, and stuff, and then high school girls. Oh my God, your brother's so cute, and I'm like, my brother would come tell me, hey, Susie really likes you, and I'm like, great. Now I got to find a different way to math class because I don't want to bump into her because what am I going to say? Hi.
So this fear of the opposite sex was, I experienced it. There was an attraction, but you were scared. You didn't know how to approach.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I looked at them. When we're running, when we're running laps as soccer players in high school and stuff. I'm running by the cheerleaders and looking at them. I knew I dug chicks and was like, wow, look at these cheerleaders.
Did you ever have any attractive babysitters when you were growing up?
Yeah, I think so. I think I felt that as a young boy, seeing like the older type girl that had was a little more developed and a caregiver, if you will, looking after us, so to speak, making sure we didn't get into trouble, but still kind of like, if I could take a peek.
What about like your friends' hot moms?
Yeah. Sure.
So that
typical American or growing up type of stuff.
And how did you view women? How did you view girls? Did you put them up on a pedestal?
Yeah, I wanted one. I was like, oh my God, I want to get one. And I want to. Because I think I saw how my father treated my mom, He was such a big, strong man, 6'2", and she was such a small, frail woman. And I always saw how he would just be, open the door and, different things and stuff. So I felt like, I want one. I don't know if that's like objectifying one. Is that potentially there, I saw him as maybe an object of desire, maybe, beautiful girl.
You wanted what it gave you, or what it gave.
Sure, I wanted. Yeah, I wanted one because then she would understand me. At least I hoped eventually, and then I could maybe also explore her, or So, yeah. Well, I got into adult at 36, kind of late, and I'm glad because I did a lot of stupid things as a young man. We all do. Fortunately, it didn't jeopardize it didn't have an effect on my career in the business because I had already gotten that out of my system. Had I not and started the adult business in my 20s, so to speak, maybe I wouldn't have been able to handle it, so to speak, and then got into some wrong things and such. But I started at 36, so backing up 10 years, at 26-ish, early 20s, I started working out. Met a few guys at the gym that were like, "You look good. You should dance. You should." And I'm like, this was kind of around that whole Chippendales kind of explosion, if you will. Men taking their clothes off for women is really started at when? The 70s.
Yeah.
That was kind of when it really became something that was noticed. Men entertaining women.
I danced at the Crazy Horse in Miami, which was, I believe, the first club in America to have a male review, and I think they started in the 70s.
Yeah. It was an interesting time, because since the beginning of the dawn of man, it was women entertaining men. It wasn't until the tables were turned, and I guess women said, you know what, we want to be entertained too. whatever that whole movement was or something.
So you were dancing?
Yeah, I was dancing.
Fine.
Pretty much dancing.
Okay.
Got into it, bodybuilding, learned that the girls were screaming my name. Oh my God, I didn't even have to do nothing at some point. You know, just come out, boom, and they're, ah. And I was like, yeah, this is great. You know, I get to do something cool. It's still very against my typical, you know, behavior, being shy, yet, but I guess the alter ego was I get to act like I'm not.
And then being the object of desire by women.
Yeah, that's a good.
That enhanced your self-esteem.
Sure. Oh, of course, confidence, self-esteem. So that worked. And then, so I guess my first time I did this hot body contest, lost, but I heard all these girls scream my name and just continued to pursue it. And next thing you know, I met this guy who said, yeah, we got a group and we dance here and there and here and there. You should come. And next thing you know, I'm in that circuit, dancing, driving up here, North Jersey, Delaware, Philadelphia, doing the circuit for strippers.
How did you get to your first scene? How did that come about?
Here's how I got to my first scene. I had been moved away from Jersey at 29, moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I was dancing in Jersey, Delaware, Philadelphia, that tri-state area, New York. Decided, you know what? I suffered an accident, injury, legs, pretty much rendered me crippled for a year. I'm jumping ahead real fast. I was dancing, yeah. What was I doing? Dancing.
Well, you broke.
Oh, yeah. I suffered an injury. I really got into the bodybuilding thing, you know. I won't lie. Did a couple of exploratory steroid cycles and such, because if I hadn't, I would have been 150 pounds for the rest of my life because I was a very underdeveloped young man. So I decided, you know what? I did a little research, talked to a few people. They said, this is what you're going to do. And I recall the day where I said, if this is what it's going to take to make me bigger, then screw it. Did it. Put on 30 pounds in a matter of 10 weeks, which was a really big gain, obviously, if you know anything about bodybuilding. So, and I was blessed in the respect that I kept the size. So it was. I even, you know, recall telling my mom as a young man, "When am I going to grow? I'm so fucking, you know, underdeveloped." Blah 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 blah. So, you know, as I discovered my own in my own travels and stuff, you know, these things. So my experimenting was this, and put on 30 pounds, and that's what kind of got me into the dancing and such. So I ended up pursuing the bodybuilding, really enjoying that. And then one time I had, on a Saturday, 4th of July weekend, I went to, who I was married to at the time, party, you know, backyard barbecue party, where there was a trampoline and a bunch of other activities, and I was this big, giant, muscular, long-haired guy, and all these kids were like, oh my God, it's the Ultimate Warrior. So they just, you know, they just were, you know, they really responded to me well, and, you know, They just thought I was like, oh my God, this guy's so much fun. And next thing you know, they're like, let's put him on a trampoline and watch him jump. And next thing you know, I'm jumping on a trampoline, and boom, I tear my quadricep muscles off on both legs, which is pretty horrific in terms of an injury, if you know what you're, in terms of physiological. Anyway, so that rendered me crippled, 10 months, wheelchair, crutches. I decided, you know what, Jersey's cold, just rip my friggin' quadriceps off. I'm moving to Florida where it's warm. I'm done, boom. 29 years old, I moved from there to Florida, pursued the dancing. I recall once I got to Florida, though, I was still recovering. So I went from 198 pounds, bodybuilder, best shape of my life, to back to 140 pounds, like a schoolgirl. Arms, legs like my arm, literally. So here I was, the friggin' rug pulled out from under me, you know. It's just the most terrible thing, one of the most terrible things I've ever experienced in my life. So here I was in Florida, married. My wife at the time was working at Neiman Marcus doing her thing, and just across the way I was working at this little jet ski rental place, $5 an hour, with, you know, high school girl legs, with big gigantic scars from being, you know, crippled for pretty much a year. So it was very hard on me. Emotionally, physiologically, self-esteem wise, I was in the best shape of my life, literally Adonis. Everyone was like, my God, it was crazy. From when I was dancing, you know, all I had to do was go out there, shirt comes off, pants, and just, until now, here I was a year later, a skinny, dude making $5 an hour renting jet skis, thinking, what?
So how'd you get to your first scene?
What's next? I'm sorry. I ended up recovering from that, got back into the dancing, just to make it, chronologically, it's so many. I feel like I've done this so many times in terms of interview-wise. That's why I'm covering it this quick, trying to. I ended up divorced. I met a stripper, a dance. She was dancing at the same club I was, but next door. I was dancing over here. The girls were dancing over there. The guys were dancing over here. For the girls. Next thing you know, divorced, 2-3 years. Met this girl, got intimate, had sex with her. She said, "Wow, you should make movies." I was like, "That's really thoughtful of you, but I wouldn't even know where to begin." And she says, "Well, guess what? I do. I've done a few, been into California and stuff, so I'm going next week. If you want to go, come with me. I'll pay whatever it is the cost to get you there and whatever money you'll lose dancing." So I said, "You know what? Win-win situation. Sounds great." Sign me up. A week later, flying to California, landing, driving to rent a car, carrying her suitcases, going to her first set. 10 days. I met a few directors, producers, a bunch of talent. One of the meetings that I had was a gentleman, Brad Armstrong, at a place where she, had said, "Yeah, we're gonna go out to dinner with this guy. He's a big director from Wicked. We're gonna go over here." And I remember him picking us up in this white Camaro with XXX down the side, Wicked. You remember that one? You remember that? So he picks us up. She jumps in the front. I jump in the back. Roof down. We're driving in Hollywood. Next thing you know, we get to this place.
Did you feel like you were in your own version of Boogie Nights?
Yeah, it was kind of like, man, this is cool. This is cool. I'm cool. I'm digging it. Anyway, cut to what happened was he said at one point I was like, "Look, man." She went to the bathroom. I said, "Hey, man, let's be honest. What if I wanted to pursue this business? What's a guy like me have to do?" He says, "The best way to do is you come in with a pretty girl." I says, "Okay." He says, "This way you have something to offer. Somebody will look at you. Otherwise, you're just a guy that wants to have sex with pretty girls, and so does the whole world. But you come in with a pretty girl, producer or director says, 'Wow, she's pretty, but she only wants to work with me,' and that's kind of your foot in the door. If you're blessed enough they give you the chance to shoot you, then at least you have an opportunity to see if you can do the job or not." He says, "That's what you need." Gave me a card. We wrapped up that dinner, went back to Florida, kept this card. I think, we lost touch. She went her way, I did mine. I wasn't really ready to do it. So back to the stripping thing, odd jobs, doing construction, little mini jobs, odd jobs here and there. Back to construction and stuff, and doing still dancing, but with this business card. I proceeded to wait 4 years because I was just nervous as hell. Thought, you know what? Oh man, how can I wish I could just do this. So that was how I was introduced to the business. 4 years later, when I decided, you know what, I'm not getting any younger, I kept pulling this business card out every 3-4 months and calling up Brad. "Hey Brad, it's Tommy Gunn. Hey man, what are you doing?" "I'm just making movies. Still, have you decided?" I recall like the dialogue we had, and he was like, he would answer and like, "I'm still making. Have you given any thought?" I said, "Yeah, I think about it all the time, but I'm nervous." He's like, "Well, it's normal. All right, I'll let you go." Click. So after doing that for 4 years, every couple months, I decided, hey man, at the time I was working at a motorcycle shop in Florida. I decided to do it. I'm 36, I ain't getting any younger. Screw it. At the time, I recall being without. Went without sex like a year and a half. Right? It's crazy because for some reason or another, having been through the divorce,
We'll touch on that. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I went through something similar.
Yeah.
Continue on with the first scene.
First scene. I decide I'm going to call him. "Hey man, I decided to do it. Sounds great. What's the best course of action? Best thing to do is meet me in Vegas in January." Perfect. Flew to Vegas. All the while I knew I was going there. I started tanning and working out. Went to Vegas, met him. At this point, cut my hair, walked into the place, saw him. He goes, "Wow, you clean up good." He says, "Great to see you 4 years later." let's go. Took me around the convention, and it was just monstrous, gigantic at the time. 2000, I want to say, 2003, if you will. Just everything was gigantic. He brought me around and he just said, here's what you want to say. Just tell him you're the new guy and you've done some internet stuff and you're ready to go. Great. Brought me around to everyone. Hey, this is Tommy Gunn. This is Tommy Gunn. I got cards, met girls, and just got a great reception from everybody. Did my thing. 2-3 days. Flew back to Florida. Gave my boss 2-week notice. Drove back. Drove from there 2 weeks later to Vegas. Got to Vegas, stayed on an old girlfriend's couch, and waited. And Brad says, one day he called and says, all right, I got a gig for you. February 16th at this place, Fluff and Fold. You're going to play a guy who comes in and gets a DJ from some girl. Okay, boom. I was in Vegas, got the call, drove from there to California. That was my first scene.
Fluff and Fold?
Yeah.
Is that Kehlani?
Probably, yeah, but I was with Cherokee at the time. But Randy Spears was the owner of the.
Yeah.
I'm sure you were probably in there. Yeah, so that was my first scene. I got there and I recall, being told go over here, and then I went over there and I sat in this place and I got the script and I saw my dialogue, and then I remember that's Randy Spears, because I did some research before I got into the business. I didn't want to just show up and be like.
When you say research, you
watched porn?
Watching. You watched porn?
Yeah, I
you
started watching.
Porn
well, I did, but I had my...
You weren't like a rabid fan.
I wasn't like... I liked high sexual energy. My experience from sex before the business wasn't just overly,
over the top stuff.
It wasn't you know what I mean? It's like I loved it, still a bit funny about it, because I didn't want to just jump into any bed with anyone, because I'm fucking, where's this girl been? What am I going to get, So I think if I can remember correctly, I remember saying I may have had sex with 40 girls before I even got into the business.
Wow.
Which, having been a dancer for 10 years, it should have been 400. But it could have been, but it wasn't. It wasn't. It just wasn't. When I lost my virginity, I was 17 years old. I remember doing it on a tennis court at night. Dark. Chrissy Livingston, New Jersey.
That's great. That's awesome. No.
Yeah. There was, I think a lot of going back, my mom passed away in 94, so there was never a discussion with her, obviously. And from my father's standpoint, it was never a discussion, hey, Dad, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? I never had that. I may have had some discussion with some friends that I knew in my travels that I knew had some relation to the business of some sort, and asked them their opinion, and all I got was good response. Oh, you would be great. You should do it. You could do this, and you'll be this, and you'll be that. So come time to navigate my way in terms of finding that, if I was met with any opposition, I really wasn't. I just decided, you know what, I'm going to do this, and didn't have much of a discussion with any friends or with any family members, so to speak. I guess I want to say at some point in my life I kind of got distant from a lot of my family members, if you will, because something was kind of like, go west, young man, and I was, and that's what I did. I went out and looked for something. I think at some point we're still looking for it. Well, the first 4 years in terms of navigating my particular way was, I didn't get an agent, only because by virtue of I guess I'll say Brad, he recommended you won't need one, because if you are diligent and you get out there and you're personable and you get out there and you talk to people and you get on the phone and you introduce yourself and you make rounds, and then you do a good job, as well as additionally I remember him saying, you want to do good in this business, show up. That's pretty simple. And I did. I showed up and was nice, and then I realized, hey, the girls are going to dictate in some capacity my success, because if they don't like me as much as the director likes me, if he hires me, she don't like me, she won't work with me, doesn't do me any good. So as I was in my natural way in life, I was a nice, likable person. So I just was real cordial to the girls, very nice and such. So that really helped, and that's what I think I owe some of my success to, was just being a nice guy and being concerned. Hey, you all right? I'm not hurting you. I wasn't a smack you around type of guy. I mean, they're out there. I guess there's two types of guys: one who likes women and one who hates women, right?
And you didn't have an ego.
I didn't have an ego, nah, but at all. All I was just like happy to be here. Like, oh my God, this is amazing,
How committed were you to achieving success in the industry? Was it something that you just kind of passed through until you got bored, or were you like, I'm gonna be the best I can be?
No, how committed I was to the industry, I think came out when everything I've ever done as a guy or as a kid or in any capacity, I always just like delved into it entirely and become, if you will, so I try to master it, if you will, BMX, playing an instrument in a band, soccer. I was good at a lot of things fairly quickly, and my ability to focus, if you will, was there. Plus, I went through a little bit of a dark spot, so I think the adult business, I really related to it because it was something I could be good at, and my I guess you'll say love for the female form in women. Wow, this is a great place to let that unfold. And from a physical standpoint, I knew being physically fit and having a decent look would also be beneficial, because I recall a lot of the times that I experienced in the business was, a lot of people would say, oh yeah, it's good, you got a great look. We're not used to seeing that in this business, because for a long time it seemed like the male form, if you will, from the adult business wasn't. I think there was a time when the male form changed, the image of that male performer changed into a more fit, more aesthetic looking actor.
Well, the fear was that if a guy came into the industry and looked really fucking great, he was probably a vain guy,
right,
and really more concerned about
how
his looks.
Right.
And it's always been about whether or not you keep your dick hard.
Yeah, of course.
And so what had happened is these really good-looking guys would come in, great bodies, but they weren't strong performers. Yeah. So that was always like, okay,
sure, yeah, right. I understand that, right. But then I saw. Like I said, I experienced that dialogue from people. Oh yeah, So they said, yeah, you came in at a good time. It was a time when the image of the male performer was changing, and the girls really received it well, obviously for natural reasons, I guess. Oh, I get to have sex with a good looking guy. That's always not a bad thing. Versus they're dreading. I would never want a girl to dreadfully want to have sex with me. Yeah. That would be bad. So.
Well, there's Ron Jeremy.
You know what I'm saying?
There's he's always used as an example of.
Sure, but as a young man, he was a handsome guy.
Yeah.
He
was fit too.
Yeah, fit, very handsome, and very intelligent. So I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Do you remember how soon it was? Now, when you got in, videos and DVD were the main distribution for porn.
Sure.
Internet was still
kind of new on the horizon. It was
but
I think I want to say I was maybe 75-25. 75% of my work was video DVD-ish. 25 was.
When you started getting recognized in public, how did that make you feel? And did you get any perks from people recognizing you?
When I first started getting recognized in public, I'm trying to recall when that was. I recall something that Brad said to me, and he said, there's two ways to approach this. If you want to get recognized, or not recognized, but if you want to, he says, if you do the big features end up getting edited down, and there's a softcore version, and that softcore version is on cable in worldwide. But then if you don't, and you just want to do the hardcore kind of like in and out scenes, they don't get as much views just naturally. So I said, you know what, I like the features because it's kind of like being it's being a smaller version of a Hollywood actor. We get to dress up, we got some cool wardrobe, we have some dialogue and stuff, and then the sex ensues, and there it goes. So I said, okay, I dig that. So I kind of, for lack of better words, kind of, I guess, got, I want to say, recognized as a feature guy fairly quickly in the business.
Because you're on screen more, more time in a feature because you're acting, you're talking, you get all this stuff as opposed to a Gonzo scene.
You're in and out.
Boy meets
girl.
But it's on the girl. They pan to your face.
Yeah. So I said, wow, cool, because I always loved acting, and that was kind of that was definitely a bit of the reason why I got into business. I realized it was a miniature Hollywood. It wasn't like, I felt like I stood at a crossroads at one point, mainstream or adult. And I said, well, I've been doing adult for 10 years, so I'll just continue on that path.
So being in front of a stage, being on stage in front of an audience of, 100 girls, 300 women, and then now you're on camera and it's being recorded. Was there any stage fright?
There was some stage fright in initially from being on camera. I've experienced being in front of hundreds of women and thousands actually at a couple of times where you just danced in front of this amazing crowd of people. Again, you could just come out and just do the stupidest thing, and they would just go scream and holler. So, but came time for a little more intimate scene where you're just revealing everything. That was a little more like, oh my God, because then the possibility of not being able to do your job, so to speak, was there, and that was the biggest fear, because it's not like it's not like you had a bad day at work as a sales guy and you didn't sell a car. I didn't sell a car. I lost the deal. Big deal. All right, there's always tomorrow. In our job, if a bad day at work is there is no debt, there is no scene, or you can't do your job, which inevitably stands for you didn't get your dick hard, and everyone's looking at you like, and then that's the funniest feeling in the world when there's such this somber mood that just overwhelms the entire set, when everyone just doesn't want to kind of look at each other and he's not doing the job, and that happens because we're not robots. But early on I remember those days trying to find myself and figure out how to let go, not be so caught up in, oh my God, I'm doing this and everyone's looking at me. That's got to go away, otherwise you'll never be able to do your job. And eventually it kind of just got to the point where, all right, we're going to do this, this, and this, and this is the kind of the way it unfolds. And so I guess there was a spot where you could develop bad habits, and if you had, you were doomed. And if you didn't, and you can make it past that, you had a chance. So, how many times have I been nominated for work in the industry? There was a time when I really was, I guess, in tune to it and excited about it. But then I kind of, I don't know what you would call it, fill in the blanks, but I kind of just said, you know what matters is, I guess, what the fans think. The nominations are nice, don't get me wrong, and the political portion of it is there. I realize that. I think I did a lot of my nominations and awards came in the early part of my career, first, second, third, fourth year, literally. And then it kind of just declined wasn't as active, I guess you will. So
do you
the results.
Do you get the feeling that the number of nominations you receive as it declines is a representative of you being moved out to pasture or put out to pasture in a way?
I guess in some capacity one could, find some association to that. Yeah.
But when you do get nominated, I mean, describe that. Let's talk about winning. What's the biggest award that you won that meant the most to you?
Right. The biggest award that I won that meant the most to me was Male Performer of the Year, and that was in 2007. My first award was 9 months out of the gate. I was nominated for Best Male Newcomer. I won that within the first year. So my first day, 9 months later, nominated. 2 months later, I won Best Male Newcomer. So that kind of put me on the map, I guess, at least. And then second year was, I want to say, sex scene thing. And then you and I were up for something similar, the supporting actor for Pirates. And I just, my thoughts were, because of the character, I won. You're a great actor. My character just was stagnetti, so it was hard maybe for I think my thoughts on the whole thing was, I just played a more predominant character, if you will, that was more relative to the story.
Right.
Therefore, okay, stagnetti wins. Great. And I was thankful. But just to be nominated, I mean, you're a great actor. I feel like I'm just still trying to carve out my own, So that was, like I said, first year, second year, third year-ish, 4 years. I won pretty much most of those things. Never won Best Actor ever, which I kind of kicked the ground for, but it is what it is. I think there was a performance or two there where I felt like I wanted, or I felt like I was up for it, and I lost to something that made me scratch my head, and it was just a strange thing. I think it's hard for the
ego.
No, not the ego. I think it's hard for some of the people to arrive at a winner.
Yeah.
Because I just thought, you got a dramatic scene and you got a character who's being developed. It's not really being emulated. Then you got a guy who's just playing a guy who looks like a guy, and just because he looks like a guy.
Parody, you mean?
Yeah. And I was like, all right. But anyway, so there was a time when I lobbied for awards. Like each year, I got my nominations. I went out, filmed a little. I took whatever I was nominated for, took it out of a DVD, put it onto a little reel, and went into AVN literally with, and said, "Here's my reel. I just wanted to get back on your guys' thoughts and your minds again of what I'm really appreciative of the nominations and stuff." And I felt like that worked because at one point or another, I had some of the journalists from AVN and stuff even mention that, like, "Oh, Tommy Gunn's, he's lobbying for these awards like a real mainstream actor," and I was like, "Oh, whatever." Then I realized it didn't do me any fucking good after a while, and I just threw my hands up and said, "Fuck it, that's a lot of work." And
is there one award that you would like to win before you exit?
Yeah, I would like to win Best Actor, but I mean, at this point, I want to say I feel like I've won pretty much all the ones that are the bigger ones from a male perspective.
So what about Hall of Fame?
No, I'm not. I think.
But are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I think what qualifies us is the 10 years are over, so to speak, a 10-year mark. But Hall of Fame, Hall of Shame, whatever you want to call it, Hall of Infamy. Who knows?
We were talking earlier about relationships in the industry, dating.
Just to real quick, if I may, just to kind of throw the fact that all my awards are simply in a box wrapped up in newspaper in a storage unit in Vegas. So
that's how much importance it has for you.
Well, I value them, and it was a great moment of my life for that moment, but.
You don't have a big show.
I don't have some gigantic fire mantelpiece with some thing that I get up every morning and look at and go, "Oh my God." And I'm thankful of them, but, you know, that's where they're at, so, truth be told.
In the industry, obviously, dating, we date our peers. We date the girls we work with when there's a connection. Did being in the movies, being in the industry, make intimate relationships that you were in better or more difficult for you to maintain?
I want to say there was kind of a two sides to that. And here's how I felt about that. When I was in my prime of my career, winning the awards, I was, you know, we'll use it as we'll use it as like an analogy, high school. The relationships and the way they may have been affected by being in the business, I want to say, in the early part of my career, second, third, fourth this year, I want to say, I don't want to say I reached a pinnacle. Maybe I was at like a place where I won all these awards. I was the guy, if you will. It felt like that. If I can relate that to like high school, I was the star quarterback in some capacity. So sure, the cheerleader or this cheerleader or that, I'm on their radar, and I feel like in some respect that kind of helped in getting the attention of a couple girls here and there, and landing a relationship, if you will, and starting that intimacy. But then the tragic part about it was the fact that I still got to get up in the morning, kiss this girl goodbye, and go have sex with a stranger. And no matter how anyone cuts it, at the end of the day, when you share that intimacy with somebody and you have to go do that, your heart gets in the way and doesn't really agree with it. And I don't want to say that's with every couple. I've seen couples that are like, woo, go ahead, but then you think to yourselves, how much do they really care about each other? If they're just so, go ahead and have sex with anyone you want, I don't care.
Well, there are some who say if you really truly love somebody, you'll let them do what they need to do or what they are doing in this
way, right?
Case. But they come back to you, and that's what counts.
Right. No, and I agree with that in some way, but then at one point or another, I want to say that's a thought that I want to eventually get away from and go back to more of a traditional type of thing. Right. And say this: if you want to go explore and experience those things, I'll go with you. Hence why a lot of the business, I guess, kind of has that swinger type of vibe, if you will. The swinger lifestyle does really well in this business because of that, that ability to allow somebody to go off and experience some of the things that they enjoy all the while in a relationship, as long as the core is not, compromised.
Did dating in the industry affect your professional life? Were jobs or roles not given to you because of friendships or perceived?
I think the dating in the business did affect my professional in some capacity. Some psychologically, here I was now dating and intimate with somebody and in love. So how did I feel from just me and my beliefs and how I was raised? Am I so excited to get up and kiss this girl that I am in love with? I feel I'm in love with. And go off and have some meaningless sex with somebody else. When before, I didn't have that.
But you just said it's meaningless sex.
I realize that, but it's still an intimate act, no matter how you cut it. And I was interrupted in the fact that I had to get up and go do something. I would have loved to just stay in bed with the girl I'm in love with. but now I got to get up and go and do it. So as meaningless as it was still an act of intimacy in some capacity that took away from
your own intimacy.
My own intimacy. It cut into that, and I think that's what happened a lot. I think that's what I've experienced in some of the relationships that I've had. The girls tend to want to, that's how it affected them. They felt, they were sharing their man. And the same thing with me. I was sharing my woman with the business.
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult. Very difficult. But I've dealt with it on both ends of it. Dealing with it, being okay with it, allowing it, accepting it, saying, well, if this is what it takes to be in this situation, then I guess I have to accept it and kind of try to wrap my head around it and feel it in my heart, so to speak. Or decide, you know what, while I'm in this business, I'm not going to do that. But your heart gets your heart gets involved, so it's still a very tough. For me now at my age, at this point, I just went through a relationship, and that was one of the. I don't want to share my man, and me feel the same way. Like I could feel differently about certain guys working with them. Like, yeah, he's my boy, no problem. And then other guys, I don't know him. In fact, I don't think he's a little mischievous in the sense that if he had the opportunity, he'd whisper his number in her ear. Maybe I'm not too cool with that type of guy. But
well, he knows that she's in a relationship.
Yeah, well, he's aware, exactly. But then there's the other guy who's like, look, man, I know I'm working with your girl, and she's going to be in great hands, and I'm like, cool, so thankful. I'm like, she's working with Steven. Awesome. All's good. Because you're like, you know what I mean? But then there's the other type of guy. And then there's the other type of girl. Same scenario, flipped. Maybe there's some girls in the business that are like, yeah, my guy's working with that girl. No problem. We're great. Another girl. No way. It's just a weird. It's not a normal thing, man. It really isn't.
Using our sex as a currency, for our lifestyle,
sure,
to pay the bills, to earn a check, that I believe is where people trip up, because we're using it as a currency
sure,
for our lives, but then also we're apportioning a percentage of that to an intimate relationship that we want with somebody else. Do you really think that's rational?
Right. Is the value in both?
Is it even rational to think that
sure.
It's
Wait a minute. I do this to keep the lights on and put food on the table but then by the same token, right. That's what I was always afraid of. When I first started, I thought to myself, am I going to take what I value as a wonderful act between two people in love, this beautiful thing that is just awesome? Am I gonna lessen the value of that by using that now as a virtue of earning an income, to the point where eventually jump ahead 10 years or whatever, and I'm just like, great. It's kind of like discrediting the thing. The thing is just this awesome thing. It's kind of like taking a diamond ring. It's this awesome thing between two people, and now you go to the pawn shop. There's a zillion of them in the case, and they're probably talking to each other like, "Man, so much for being like the token of love, right? We're all here in this little case together. What's your story? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's strange."
That would actually be an interesting porno. I think that'd be a good porno.
What's your story? You don't even want to know. It all happened in Vegas.
That's brilliant. You should write that.
Oh yeah, my story. I've been 20 years. 20 years married. Everything was great. These are diamond rings talking to each other.
That's awesome.
Right?
What amount of jealousy between the guys and the girls have you experienced or observed working in the industry?
From an amount
just a professional, maybe a professional jealousy. I've had mentioned to me things, other male performers,
Sure.
younger, maybe a little newer, being jealous or envious or
Yeah.
saying something.
Sure.
And it's just like, there's enough to go around. Like,
No, yeah, exactly.
Like, make your career, do what you're going to do. You can't have my career. You can't do what I did, and I can't do what somebody else has done.
Right.
Have you observed that? Or?
Have I experienced jealousy in terms of another performer? Yeah. A little envious, a little snidey, looking down their nose, so to speak. I recall back when I was winning a couple awards and stuff, I actually had a conversation with somebody at a nightclub. And there, and it kind of, the way it unfolded was kind of like, you know, a lot of people don't like you. And I'm like, I don't understand why. You know, because you came out of nowhere and you were so successful so quick. And I was like, I just showed up and did my job and was happy to be here.
And that's what you were told to do.
That's what I was told to do,
Right.
so to speak. You know?
That's weird.
And there was even some discussion like, oh, people think you're cheating. And I'm like, what do you mean cheating? Oh, you know, using the needle. I'm like, at one point I was like, I couldn't. And then I go, the needle, not what? Needle?
Yeah, what is that again? I forgot. Caberjet.
And I was like, no. I was like, really?
What is Caberjet, for people who don't know?
Caberjet is a compound, if I'm correct, that's mixed in a laboratory, for lack of better words, that has vasodilating properties. So when introduced in a specific amount to the penis, because the penis is made of spongy, membrane, such and so on, it pretty much, for lack of better words, expands those, inevitably making it hard. But then now you have a artificially hard penis in some capacity, if you want to call it that.